Hi everyone, so today I'll be doing the Meet Your Book Freakout tag. I am so excited to do this tag. Not only that, this is my first tag, I'm also being tagged by my good friend Binish Amir. She also has a YouTube. She talks about books and she had amazing hair. So if you guys are interested in her channel, I'll be linking it down below. So without further ado, let's just get started. So the first question is the best book I've read so far in 2021. So my answer is going to be The Future of Humanity by Michio Kaku. I think I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really like this book. So this is a non-fiction book about, basically, as the title suggests, the future of humanity, particularly regarding human settlement, how we're going to move to either the moon, Mars, or even like Saturn moons, or even the exoplanets. So Michio Kaku is a futurist, he's a physicist, and he's also a communicator of science. And I think that this book really highlights all of his titles. He's able to communicate his ideas in a very accessible manner, and I learned a lot of valuable information about space travel in this book. And it's really fun to read as well because he tells the story by weaving through pop cultures. So as a layman, when it comes to physics, when it comes to natural science, I really appreciate his way of making science accessible. Not only that I get a bunch of valuable information from this book, for some reason, reading about space or the universe really gave me this warm feeling, like I'm just relieved that I'm just a part of something bigger. So when I look back to my everyday problem, it seems so little and it feels really relieving. So reading this book is not only informational but also therapeutic. So the second question is the best sequel I've read so far in 2021, and the answer will be The Wicked King by Holly Black. So disclaimer, I think this tag is going to have the Folk of the Year series ongoing theme because I just started on this series and I'm absolutely loving it. I would say that I prefer the first book from the series, which is The Cruel Prince. I think it has a better pacing and it has more pivotal moments. It has so many iconic action scenes. But still, I really like this book as well because it has something that the first book doesn't really provide, which is a really great romance of the two characters that I ship so hard. And the ending of this book is just perfect, chef kiss. It's everything that I expected from the author. So the third question is the new releases that I haven't read but really want to. So I finished the Akachar trilogy minus the Court of Silver Flame. So I think this book was released in February this year. I think it's relatively new. I'm really excited to start this book because some people say that it's really spicy. It's her first new adult books in terms of the Akatar series. So I really want to continue on the Nesta journey. I think she's quite interesting. I think I like Nesta more than I like Farah, so that's why I think I have more motivation to start this rather than Akawar or even A Court of Frost and Starlight. But yeah, I really don't know when I'm going to start this. I deliberately want to reserve this book because I think I just need a little break from SJM's writing. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I hate her writing or anything, but I just really want to have that variety in my reading palette. So I deliberately reserved this. I still want to read this, but I just can't predict when. Another new release that I will read will be A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer. Well, I guess this book is also relatively new. I actually haven't even started with the Curse So Dark and Lonely, but I've heard so many things about these books. I don't really know that much about this book except that it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling with, of course, Bridget Kemmerer's own twists and turns. This book is also recommended by the Goodreads algorithm, saying that if you enjoy The Cruel Prince, you'll also enjoy this book. So because I enjoyed The Cruel Prince, I really want to start this book as well. And as you might notice, I still have the plastic wrapping on the book, so it just really shows that yes, I haven't touched this book. I haven't read it. So the fourth question is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and my answer for that will be the last installment of the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, which is the Thrawn Ascendancy: A Lesser Evil by Timothy Zahn. I am so excited to see how the trilogy finished. Well, I'm kind of bittersweet about it because it's the last of the trilogy, and as a Thrawn fan, of course, I want more story about him, but I'm also really excited how Timothy Zahn is going to complete this Ascendancy trilogy. Timothy Zahn is my favorite Star Wars author. He has written Thrawn from the EU era, and he has so many beautiful prose in his book. He has so many iconic quotes from the Star Wars books, so I'm really anticipating this last installment. I think the fourth question will relate to the fifth question, which is the biggest disappointment. Unfortunately, my biggest disappointment in this year will be Thrawn Alliances by Timothy Zahn. Oh no. Even I feel so sad saying it. I really like the first Thrawn canon book, which is the Thrawn novel. I think I have the copy here. So I really like this Thrawn novel. So it was the first Thrawn canon novel that was released in 2017, and then it was preceded by this Thrawn novel, Thrawn Alliances, that was released in 2018. I don't know, this book is just a drag for me. I almost didn't finish it. If I could say more, this book even put me in a reading slump. I just couldn't finish it. And I'm that type of reader who just wouldn't DNF a book, and so that I kept pushing through it, but it just makes my reading experience plunge. So yeah, I was really disappointed for not liking this book. Now, in any way or form that I'm saying that this book is objectively bad, because I think it's still very well written. It's just that I had a really high expectation on how the character of Thrawn is being utilized, and I really feel that the stake of this book is so little. I guess I should have guessed from the beginning that the underlying hamartia of the canon novels, the Star Wars canon novels, is that it really lacks stake, as if that the writer doesn't really have much creative control over the story. It really feels like the authors are asked to create scenarios to fill in the gaps as opposed to a full-fledged narrative. But I just couldn't help but expect a lot from this book, especially that it's written by Timothy Zahn. It's the author that I really like. I really enjoyed the EU Thrawn trilogy, and the fact that this book is really fun to read. It has so many political intrigue. Thrawn is really tactical in here. He is a true strategist in here. The side characters are really interesting. There's Arne the Prize and there's Vanto. But the second book, as it's being told back and forth between different periods, is a little bit confusing and kind of like frustrating to read sometimes, because I almost DNF this book. So I just keep waiting for that moment, that pivotal moment to come in, but I only found it at like the very end part of this book. And I don't really care that much about what's happening here, particularly the flashback part. I think Thrawn is a strategist, and I expected him to solve problems that are directly related to him rather than problems that might relate to him. Like, I wish that Thrawn's talent would be utilized more than solving a missing person's case. I don't think that's like really the essence of his character, so I'm rather disappointed at that utilization. Another biggest disappointment of this year will be Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerry Maniscalco. Now, like the Thrawn Alliance book, I'm not saying that this book is objectively bad or anything. It's just that I have quite a lot of expectation with this book, and I think that's why the disappointment feels really intense. I still gave it like 3 out of 5 stars in my review. I think I really like the premise of this book. I think the tone and the theme is super delicious, deliciously dark to be precise. When I saw the concept art of this book for the first time, I immediately thought that I need to get my hands around this book. I need to purchase this book right here, right now. But after I finished this book, I just feel confused. There's a lot of plot elements that aren't well explained. There's a lot of things that the author kind of wants to miss out so that she could maybe explain it in the second installment of the book. So like I really feel like this is a prequel of a story rather than a full-fledged story to me. Sometimes it also feels like I'm getting into a marketing scam, because if I want a story, I have to fully commit to the trilogy. Otherwise, I just won't get anything at all. Question number 6, my biggest surprise. So my biggest surprise will be this book from Sarah J. Maas, not so popular author, quote unquote, which is A Court of Mist and Fury. Now, if you've seen my first video, which is my review on the ACOTAR, I was quite lukewarm about the book. I didn't hate the book. I didn't like it either. I was just kind of like meh with the book. I think it was just an okay read for me. It's a really easy escapism, and it was quite a fast read for me because all the information is really spoon-fed and there's not really much around that happens. But I still really feel good when I finish it, because I was really in a reading slump when I read ACOTAR. I'm not saying that her writing is like mouth-shatteringly good or anything, but if it's marketed to be an easy read, easy escapism story, then it definitely serves a purpose. So my biggest surprise came when I finished A Court of Mist and Fury. I didn't expect that I will have a rather positive feelings after reading it. Sure, it still has an obvious writing, maybe not mistake, but like issues, but I was surprised that reading it is really enjoyable, especially when I compare it to the ACOTAR book. I could even say that Akamov should be a standalone book. Maybe she could add like 200 to 300 pages in. Just a little bit of context from the first book and just a little bit of context, the final battle from the third book. Because at least for me, my biggest problem with SJM's writing is that not only that it's too persuasive, it's too spoon-fed, but she has a long exposition. Like there could be like one dialogue that takes up 5 pages. So I think that it's possible if she really wants to condense her writing, like 200 pages of her writing into 50 pages, and then just put it here. And I think it would make a rather decent standalone. Okay, so question number 7, favorite new authors, either debut or new to me. So my favorite new authors would be Michio Kaku, Holly Black, and Margaret Rogerson. Okay, these authors aren't absolute new authors, as in like new in the writing world. They're just new to me. I just read Michio Kaku's book, The Future of the Humanity, for the first time, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I also just started on the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black, and I really like her writing style. And for Margaret Rogerson, I just read Sorcery of Thorns, and I really like the book. There's nothing really that visionary about the book. I think like it's a really safe story, but ever since last year, I am really in the fantasy mood. I really want to read like a typical story, like a safe and nostalgic story, a story that's just simple and embrace me, and that I don't have to commit to a full-fledged trilogy or a saga. So reading Sorcery of Thorns really quench my fantasy thirst. So last year I read Uprooted by Naomi Novik, and based on Goodreads algorithm, our own bookish Jarvis, I was recommended The Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogers. So about 2 months ago, I finally got my hands around this book, and after I read the book, I really like it. I just love the safeness and the security that the book provides me. It gives me a really easy escapism. I don't think that the plot or the elements are really mouth-shattering or anything. It's quite a tropey book, but it envelops me enough into the world, and I really like the way the book is structured. It is written in the third point of view, and it is also a standalone book, so I don't have to commit into a full-fledged trilogy. It's just a really safe book for me to read. Alright, so question number 8, newest fictional crush. Good lord, when I said that this tag is going to have a folk of the air underlying theme on it, I really wasn't kidding, so bear with me. The answer to this question will be Jude and Cardan, and I really can't choose which character to crush on because I have a girl crush on Jude. Not only that, she's awesome. She has a lot of iconic action sequence. She's a really active character in a sense that she doesn't only react to the situations around her, but she has her own goals and motivations, and she's there to get it. So it's really difficult to not root for an active character like her. On the other hand, Cardan is also really interesting. He's sassy and sarcastic, but underneath that cruel armor, he's just a really soft individual. He's a soft boy underneath. It's just that kind of like coconut character who are strong on the outside, but he's such a fluff boy on the inside. The fact that both Jude and Cardan is a morally great character really adds the likability point. Sometimes authors just kind of want to have this dogmatic thinking, so reading these morally great characters really refresh my reading palette. Question number 9, newest favorite character. Well, I mean, I could say that Jude and Cardan are my newest favorite character. In a sense, I could also say that Jude and Cardan is my new favorite character because they're one and the same. No, I mean, they're not the same, but they're one anyway because don't separate them. But yeah, as I've mentioned, I really like the fact that both Jude and Cardan is a morally great character, and I really like the way the author describes their motivation. So the author could explain why they do this and that without necessarily justifying it. So the author gives enough information for the reader to understand, but the author also leaves room for the readers to think for their own. Like the author just knows that the readers has this capability to think for themselves. Question number 10, book that made me cry. I don't think I have an answer for this, but I have a book that almost made me cry, which is basically this book called Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. So this book mainly talks about the end-of-life care, and it raises important questions such as what would be the ideal end-of-life care, how would be more of a patient focus rather than result focus, what would be the ideal hospice be like, how it could provide a home to its residents rather than just being an institution, and other big questions like letting go of a family member who is terminally ill. How could the family proceed with having a really difficult conversation regarding the terminally ill? The second portion of the book, the author also shares his experience in being a family member, in being a son, in which that his father is experiencing quite a serious illness. It's rather affecting to read books like this, but I didn't cry, not because this book is badly written or anything like that. Perhaps it's because I expected myself to cry, so that's why I didn't cry. So unconsciously, my mental state already have an armor when I read this. Question number 11, book that made me happy is The Heart of the Soul, Emotional Awareness by Gary Zukav and Linda Francis. As you may know, I already reviewed this book. I would highly appreciate it if you check that video as well. This book makes me really happy because it provides an exploration of humans' emotions in a rather safe manner. Even though it was a little bit intense to read. Sometimes it hits too close to home. I really like the way the author explains the root of emotions like anger, idol worship, and perfectionism. And as someone who's quite dismissive about their own feelings, this book's definitely taught me how to process emotion in a healthier manner. Question number 12, the most beautiful book I've bought so far this year or received. So my answer to that question will be this book, How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black and illustrated by Ravina Kai. So I think this book is just gorgeous inside and out. The illustration is really pretty. Not only that, the cover is really beautiful. The inside of the book is really pretty as well. So here, let me give you a bit of teaser. This is probably my favorite artwork from the book. I don't know, I just have this weakness when it comes to fan art of the two characters that I ship looking at one another. No touching involved, but the gaze just gave it away. I just really love it. And I think the color palette of this book is really appropriate for the tone and the theme of the narrative. The illustration just gives me a refreshing twist to my reading experience. I feel like I'm reading to a really good bedtime stories, so that I have this warm nostalgic happiness when I read this book. I think both Holly Black and Ravina Kai did a really great job in creating this book. My only complaint would probably be that I wish there would be more Jude and Cardan moments, but I couldn't really complain much either because the existence of this book itself is already such a treat. Okay, so question number 13. What books do I need to read by the end of this year? So I don't really have like a stringent goal when it comes to my reading goal. My philosophy in reading is just do it for fun and stop when it gets stressful. It's supposed to be my safe haven from reality, from anxiety, but I still have a thematic goals. So since last year, as I mentioned, I've been in this fantasy zone. I've been wanting to read a lot of fantasies, and so that once and for all, I really want to finish or start, because I haven't really started, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yes, I know, I haven't read this book, and here's my defense. So I read The Hobbit just last year's, I think it was last year that I read The Hobbit, and I don't think that it was the most accessible read, at least for me as a non-native speaker. I should be more specific maybe. As a non-native speaker, that is in my level. So yeah, don't get me wrong, like I think Tolkien's writing is super beautiful, but I don't think I have that mental energy to process his writing style. So even when I read The Hobbit, I read it in a scanning manner. So I think I need to reread that as well. And when I read The Hobbit, I was still in university. My attention were divided between uni and reading. But now that I finally graduated, I think I might have more time and energy to finish it. So I really can't wait to start and finish the trilogy. Okay, so that was my mid-year book Freakout tag. I'm having so much fun in doing this tag. This video is going to be a bit long already, so I figure it would be best for me to sign off. But before that, I would like to thank everyone who made it to the end. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope your tea will always be warm for reading.